All right. Well, before we leave, let's get a little guess the program here, Jim. It's been a while.
You teased me with that earlier before we went on the air. I've been waiting for that.
All right. We got some programs
Hold on,
here.
let me get a brand new piece of paper here.
These right here are programs from my personal collection. They have not yet been filed away, so they are here in the to-be-filed pile. The to-be-filed pile.
To-be-filed pile?
Yes, right. Let's start with this one, Jim.
People listen to this on purpose, you know.
Let's not start with this one.
And I will have absolutely no pre-knowledge whatsoever what you're about to say, and I will, just to explain the concept of this bit, I will attempt to give the year and the location of the card in question that you are reading to me.
Hence the guessing of the Guess the Program.
Yes. Yeah, well, I just want to make sure everybody was clear.
For the record, I'm the great Brian Last, and here with me, Mr. Jim Cornette.
Yes, I think they know that part.
Just wanted to make it clear. Jim, our first program here... I stopped myself. I was about to say where it was from. Our first program here, opening bout, one fall. Tim Woods, 220 out of Ithaca, New York, versus Frank Valois, 245 out of Canada.
Ooh, very early in Mr. Woods' career.
The second contest, one fall, special is what it says. Tito Carrion, 220 out of Puerto Rico, versus the Great Malenko, 230 out of Russia. The next contest, one fall. Little Darling Dagmar, 41 inches tall.
She was a little cutie.
86 pounds, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, versus...
What's the matter with you?
I never saw the inches tall listed before.
Yes, that was the way they did it back then. See? Don't you see?
Well, I see now. Versus Diamond Lil, 44 inches tall, 83 and 1/2 pounds, Richmond, Virginia. You can catch her on Wednesdays mowing Moolah's lawn. But the next
well, that was Lil lived Katie. Was her Katie Glass was her name. Diamond Lil was a famous Mae West character in one of the Mae West movies, and she lived with Mae and Moolah for years after they all retired.
Jim, for the World Tag Team Championship, best 2 out of 3 falls, 1 hour time limit. The present world's champions, Don Curtis, 235 out of Buffalo, and Mark Lewin, 230 out of Buffalo, versus Skull Murphy and Brute Bernard. And finally, the World's Heavyweight Championship match, best 2 out of 3 falls, 1 hour time limit. The present World's Heavyweight Champion, Lou Thez, 235 St. Louis, versus Bob Orton, 261 Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, and there were things that would send you in the other direction. Curtis and Lewin were a huge babyface tag team in the Northeast, and did Skull Murphy and Brute Bernard not have a brief flirtation in the Northeast, also as a tag team in the early 60s? But then with Thez being billed as world champion, and Orton being, and that's Bob Orton Sr., being his challenger, and also Tim Woods being on the card, Frank Valois would make you think it was in the Northeast or even the Montreal area when we were going there first, but Woods and Malenko were going back to Florida. The year would be in question, and since Thez is the champion, that would be between 1963 and 1966, because it would not be 1958 or before, when Thez had been champion previously. And would this be it? Would it be a Tampa card? Possibly, probably. It also could be Jacksonville, with a world title match on top, maybe even Miami. But let's go with Malenko and Graham were not on the outs till the later in the 60s. So he was still working. Let's go with, and Tim Woods in the opening match when he would become a legend. What year did he win the NCAA? Ooh. Or did he win the NCAA? Or did he just highly place?
I only follow the professionals.
Oh, come on. 1965, Tampa, Florida.
Ooh. The date, Wednesday, January 22nd, 1964.
Ah.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay, well, I botched that. I got within 1 year. I could have said Jacksonville, but what the fuck?
Little darling Dagmar, a mere 86 pounds, only 41 inches in height, has pert a combination of midget muscle and beauty you ever will see in many a long day's journey. Little darling Dagmar was born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. In addition to wrestling, darling Dagmar has a wonderful voice and has made a few discs for her own use. Rock and roll, rhythm and blues, country and western numbers. After graduating from high school, Dagmar devoted all her time in training to becoming a professional wrestler. Dagmar's favorite holds are the airplane spin and the giant swing, which she finds most successful in attaining a triumph over her adversary. She can also turn on the heat when her opponent uses foul tactics. Darling Dagmar is rated very highly amongst the I can't even say it. Amongst the diminutive female wrestlers.
Dagmar was the top babyface of all the girl midgets. And one time, I think in 1975, we had a five midget girl battle royal. And obviously the top rope rule was not in effect. It was a pinfall deal, but it was Diamond Lil, Darling Dagmar, Honey Girl Page. Oh gosh, what were the other two's name? Because Moolah only had 5 girl midgets, I think, at the time. So they brought the whole stock in. And they would do that a lot, especially in the Southern territories. They'd mix up a grown man and a midget girl or whatever in mixed tag team matches. But go ahead, extol more virtues of Darling Dagmar.
No, that was it. Those were all for virtues. Jimmy Murdoch is the promoter here.
And actually, that because later on in Jacksonville, by the 70s, Don Curtis would be the promoter.
That's right.
In Jacksonville.
Technically, the promoter is Jimmy Murdoch Incorporated, actually, as listed here. But Big Time Wrestling returns next week, Thursday, January 30th, 8:15. Coming up Friday, February 7th, Dave Brubeck. All right, there's a show to go to.
All right.
All right, Jim, our next card here, let's go to this one. The card, the opening bout, Art Mahalik versus Woody Farmer. The second contest, the Mauler versus the Bavarian. The next contest, a tag team match, tag team action, Kenji Shibuya and Pepe Lopez versus Tony Rocco and Pantera Negra. The next match, a Texas death bout, falls don't count, winner must walk out, Pedro Morales versus the Great Kojika. Kojika. A special semi-main event, best 2 out of 3 falls, Rocky Johnson versus Cyclone Negro, and the main event, best 2 out of 3 falls, title not at stake. It is the hate battle of the century, Freddie Blassie versus Don Carson.
Okay. In that case, we are in Los Angeles. And just going up and down the card, Art Boom Boom Mahalik, was a NFL football player at one point, correct? Woody Farmer would go on to have a few spots as a character actor in motion pictures, I believe. I have no idea who the Mauler or the Bavarian were. Kenji Shibuya was one of the great Japanese heels of the 60s and was huge in Northern California for the Shire Territory. Pepe Lopez was a journeyman who spent a lot of time in the Tennessee territories, and it was he and Frank Hester that were the masked dominoes that were killed in the car wreck with Sam Bass in 1976. Pedro Morales, this is long before the, well, not, I don't say long, but this would have been before the, or would it have been after the WWF run? There's Rocky, no, this is late 60s, isn't it? Or it's before his WWF title run. Maybe right before, as I'm looking at this. Blassie and Carson did their big business around about the time right before or right after as the Tolos Blassie Coliseum show, I believe. And Don Carson is one of those guys that, as a heel, to look at him, you would think, this fucking outlaw fuck, but he was such a promo. Even though he had no physique, he was such a promo. That's why later on he became a manager with quite a bit of heat. And he was such a Southern, like a blonde Ron Wright. And he had all the gimmicks, the black glove that was loaded and all this stuff. He and Ron Wright actually sold out the Knoxville Civic Coliseum 6 weeks in a row in 1973. But he didn't make it on top in the major territories except for this run in Los Angeles, because they did a deal where he and Blassie were partners and then he turned, correct? If I remember properly.
I don't want to.
You're not going to give me any help to try to.
I'm trying not to until you actually guess something.
So I've meandered around to say that this is the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles, California. And if I had to pick between 71 and 72, I'm going to say 19. Well, because wait, Pedro. One of the titles said, could this be 1970 in Los Angeles at the Olympic Auditorium?
The date, Friday, April 3rd, 1970.
Ah!
The Olympic Auditorium, Los Angeles,
Boom.
California.
Boom goes the dynamite. You ought to give me a sound effect when I nail it.
There you go.
Or maybe not.
Second World Battle Royal, 22 wrestlers, $11,000. Friday, January 15th, 1971. Advance tickets on sale now, Olympic Auditorium. $5 and $3.50 reserved. Children under 12, half price. Sorry, discount cards will not be honored on this date only. Best seats are available now.
So they sold tickets to the annual Battle Royal 9 months in advance. That's amazing.
Oh, wow, this is April 3rd. Yeah, I didn't even put two and two together there as I saw this. Wow.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, because San Francisco and Los Angeles, the annual Battle Royal, that was the big show of the year. It was the only place really after the initial flurry of Battle Royals became a thing that it meant something somewhere.
Extra, extra, extra. NWA gives Blassie the America's title. Just as we were about to print this program, word came in that the official meeting Monday, March 30th, the NWA announced, after viewing films and hearing testimony from wrestlers and lawyers, Freddie Blassie be given the America's Championship. As far the NWA could see, Blassie did lose the event to Johnson. However, the St. Louis Blonde was not pinned or did not submit, but was disqualified for outside interference, and the title cannot change hands on a disqualification. Official verdict, Monday, March 30th, 2 p.m., St. Louis. Freddie, it is all in caps. Freddie Blassie be given the America's Championship and will be recognized as the title holder by the National Wrestling Alliance. So there it is, an official edict from the NWA. Jim,
you can tell it's official.
This next program is, not that this would be anything to give away, but this is bit of a big event for what this show is. The opening contest, Tiger Nelson versus Angelo Savoldi. The next bout, Wild Bud Cody versus CC Willie Nieves.
All right.
The next contest, Jim LaRock versus Billy Darnell.
Okay. All right. Give me some frame of reference here.
Next, we have a tag team match, 2 out of 3 falls. Sailor Thomas and Miguel Perez versus Brute Bernard and Skull Murphy. And finally, the main event, 6-man tag team action. Pampero Firpo, Roy Heffernan, and Al Costello, it does not say it here, but of course those are the Fabulous Kangaroos.
Right.
Versus Cowboy Bob Ellis, Johnny Valentine, and Antonino Rocca.
Good Lord. Boy, howdy. Billy Darnell was one of the baby faces that Buddy Rogers liked to take around as part of his crew. He had the Tarzan outfit and everything, was very dashing. Jim LaRock was a big baby face in the Evansville, Indiana area back in the late 50s, early 60s. Obviously, Sailor Art Thomas and Miguel Perez teaming indicates, against Brute Bernard and Skull Murphy, indicates that it is the early 60s, because Art Thomas was a big drawing card in the Northeast, right, and also Chicago and other places, but Perez was, if Perez and Rocca are on the same card, and Billy Darnell's on the show, and I talked about Brute Bernard and Skull Murphy having a run in the Northeast, so did the Fabulous Kangaroos, Heffernan and Costello, so did Valentine, so did Cowboy Bob Ellis. But this has to be the early 60s, because it looks odd for a lineup for late 50s. We're somewhere in the Northeast, but it's not the Garden. It may be an offshoot of the Northeast. It might be a Pittsburgh, or it might be a Baltimore, or some town that was not completely under the McMahon control at that point. My phone is ringing, but I'm not going to use the lifeline. I'm going to go 1962. And we're going to say it's in Washington, D.C.
Well, you get a little bit of this, and then you also get some taken away. The date, Saturday, March 24th, 1962, the Newark Armory.
Son of a bitch.
And it has a picture here on the other side. I'll read what it says. 30th Anniversary Program, Newark Armory, Saturday, March 24th, 1962. And in this photo, left to right, Willie Gilzenberg and Babe Coleman, two of the nation's outstanding boxing and wrestling promoters. With a shake of the hand, they became partners on March 24th, 1932. And tonight, T-O-Night, tonight, are celebrating their 30th year together. So Willie Gilzenberg, future WWF president, 30th anniversary as a promoter in Newark.
And that's why they had a 6-man on top then, because they wanted to give all those guys an easy night for a Newark Armory show. Ellis, Valentine, Rocca, the Kangaroos, and Firpo, 6-man, nobody has to work excessively hard. And the undercard, the first 3 matches, is kind of blah. So I was thinking Washington because of, honestly, because of Valentine and Thomas. But nevertheless,
I'm always blown away when these cards or these programs have schedules, just so you can kind of see, this is just New Jersey. So, this program has nothing to do with anything else happening in any other Vince Senior town, or Vince Senior state, I should say. Coming attractions. Monday, March 26th, Moose Hall, Trenton. Friday, March 30th, Temple Hall, Highland Park. Saturday, March 31st, the Jersey City Armory. Monday, April 2nd, visit the beautiful Gladiators Arena, Route 46 Totowa, for the opening wrestling program. All the outstanding TV stars will be in action. Also, Saturday, April 14th, Patterson Armory. And then once again, they come back to Newark Saturday, April 21st. So, regular small towns being run.
Well, yeah, and that was one of 2 or 3 towns they were running in the territory that night, because when you think about it, this was the big, Willie Gilzenberg was figured in. As obviously, as you mentioned, he'd go on to be WWF figurehead president. He worked with Vince Sr. for years and years. So he gets a big card, but there's only 10, 11 main event guys. And if you count Darnell, who was on the downhill slide at that point, and then the preliminaries. So they could have 3 or 4 of these shows with all the talent they would keep in the territory at one point, running in various places, and then have everybody or most everybody, all the big names at the Garden or Boston or whatever.
All right, and I don't think you'd ever get this one, but just because I don't think you would ever get this one. But
all right, well, now we don't hold an idiot in suspense.
Well, okay,
give it to me anyway now.
Real quick, here's the trying to see if there's anything else in here. Here's the card. Catch weights, 1 fall, 10-minute time limit. Jack Walters versus George Strigler. 165 pounds, 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. Pat McGill versus George Poulos.
Okay.
Welterweight, 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. Billy Grubbs versus Leonard Jake Jacobson. And the main event, 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. Red Lions versus Dude Chick.
Okay. Would that later on become Billy Red Lions?
When did he debut? I don't know.
Well, because this is going to be in the late 30s.
This may, well, I don't want to say this possibly could be Billy Red Lions.
Dude Chick was a journeyman pioneer name in, and the fact that they're also mentioning catch weight and welterweights, that goes back to the old days. Billy Red Lions was Canadian originally, so, and this would have to be early in his career. And I'm trying to, what he and Red Bastien were on top as a tag team in the early 70s, right? Was it late 60s, early 70s? And yeah. He was still in good shape, but he was older at that point. Well, it couldn't be after mid 1940s. And I'm wondering if this is somewhere in the, either in the Ontario area or in the upper United States, in that, you know, is it upper New York State or somewhere around Michigan, Ohio, in between 1940 and 1945. That's as close as I can do.
The show, the Hollywood American Legion Stadium.
Oh, my God.
Saturday, December 14th, 1935.
Shit!
This is absolutely not the same Billy Red Lions, because Billy Red Lions was born 3 years earlier.
Yeah, okay. In that case, then Dude Chick
has the greatest name ever.
Well, yes, he does. But that makes sense because he was a pioneer guy, Hollywood Legion Stadium out in California. He did a lot of stuff in the West, and I at first thought it was the 30s, but I got sidetracked thinking that was Billy Red Lions, and it couldn't be.
It's interesting. Everyone has a hometown listed except for one guy in the catchweight bout. Jack Walters, it just says Employees Association. And if you go earlier in here, it has a lowdown of all the matches. Jack Walters, an employee of our electric shop, has been following athletic activities for several years and has the belief in himself to tackle a veteran of the wrestling sport in a handicap match. He should be admired for his nerve and grit. George Strigler, alias the Eel, was holder of the lightweight belt for both the Army and Navy during wartime, and we failed to see any sign of his slowing down. All right. Red Lions from Texas here, by the way. Dude Chick from Wyoming. And finally, one last card here, Jim. Opening bout, preliminary, 1 fall, 15-minute time limit. Leo Garibaldi versus Hans Schnabel.
Schnabel to you.
Second bout, semifinal, 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. Rita Romero versus Al Saz. SZ.
That is pretty SZASZ, is it not?
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct. Main event, 2 out of 3 falls, 60-minute time limit. Danny Savage versus the Mighty Atlas. And it says, once again, main event, 2 out of 3 falls, no time limit. Each man has agreed not to use his favorite hold, the twisting head scissors or the atomic drop. Miguel Guzman versus Sonny Myers.
Okay. Leo Garibaldi was one of a member of a wrestling family, and he later on became a promoter in various places in Texas. And he had the program, you've got some of them probably, Garibaldi's Grappler.
Those are the best programs. Like the paper they used, there's no other program used like that stock of paper. It's amazing.
It was very nice. It was the satin, not the satin, but the textured finish.
Yeah.
Hans Schnabel, journeyman wrestling heel. Rito Romero was a huge name in West Texas and that area. Al Zaz was a journeyman. The Mighty Atlas was Morris Shapiro, and he was big, especially in Chicago in that area in the 50s, in the early rounds of TV. Miguel Blackie Guzman was one of the great lucha stars in Mexico of the, I guess, late 40s and early 50s. And for whatever reason, he ended up living in Indianapolis. And this guy who was a major attraction in lucha libre in the entire country in the 50s, as I said, was doing jobs for Bruiser in 1975. Miguel Blackie Guzman. And he'd get heart punched by Ox Baker in fucking 4 minutes. And Sonny Myers, obviously a longtime star in the Central States area, but he worked a lot of places. And I've got to think that this is Texas. Because of Guzman, Sonny Myers spent time there. Rito Romero. And the time frame, I got to think it's the mid-50s. Is this, is it the Dallas or the San Antonio offices from 1954?
The date, Wednesday, November 21st, 1951.
Shit.
San Antonio, Texas, the wrestlethon.
Okay, well, at least I got that much.
The promoter, Dorothy Livingood. The matchmaker,
and boy, was she.
The matchmaker, Frank Brown. The secretary, Josephine Little. The athletic commissioner, Luis Quintanilla. And the commission doctor, David F. Davis, MD.
And your announcer is Joe McHugh.
On the front cover, we have a picture of the Mighty Atlas performing one of his many feats of strength. It appears he's trying to either rip a nail out of a board with his teeth or hammer it into a board with his teeth. It's not exactly clear what he's doing here. And also in here, it says that Danny Savage turned down prelims. Danny Savage, frog voice grappler from Salt Lake City, has been off the last couple of Wrestlethon mat cards because he wouldn't take prelims offered him. Savage stated he wasn't a preliminary wrestler and had proved it by beating lots of men here and by drawing packed houses when he was in the main events. He also stated he had been willing in the past to show he was strictly a main eventer, but he wasn't wasting his time on further supporting bouts after having wrestled as hard as he did to prove himself. All right. Don't forget your peanuts. And then it has a copy here of a letter allegedly sent by Fred Atkins to Mr. Alton Erickson, the Commissioner of Wrestling, Austin, Texas. Dear Mr. Erickson, as required by the Texas State Athletic Commission, I am presenting this written formal protest on my behalf concerning my match with National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Champion Louis Thez in San Antonio the night of November 14th. Last. This is dated the 15th. During the third fall of the above stated contest, Louis Thez, using the name Louis instead of Lou just makes it sound like a teacher writing this. Louis Thez attempted to dropkick me, but I was able to avoid the movement, which unfortunately caught state-licensed referee Leo Voss, partially stunning him. When Louis Thez missed his dropkick, it made it possible for me to body slam him and pin him for over the required 3 seconds needed to win a fall in this state. However, the referee, Leo Yas, temporarily...
Voss.
What's that?
Voss.
Oh, Voss,
V-O-S-S.
excuse me. It looks like they used a Y here and a V up there. Leo Voss, temporarily put out of action, was not there for the count. Realizing this, I released my pinning hold on Thez and went to the assistance of Mr. Voss, thinking I could still pin Thez if I could get the referee back in action. While helping Voss to his feet, I was caught on the back of the head by another dropkick from Thez, this one connecting and sending both Leo and me to the mat. I am told Voss landed near where I landed on the mat and proceeded to count me down, which I admittedly was, but my protest is this action which followed my pinning of Thez earlier, which should have made me the NWA champion. Your local commissioner, Mr. Luis Quintanilla, I understand, could not make any other decision than that made by Leo Voss because he was unable to see everything that went on due to excited fans jumping up on the seats, cutting off his view. Realizing Mr. Quintanilla's reluctance to pass on such an important matter, I request your getting further information from referee Voss, Mr. Frank Brown, and Mr. Quintanilla. I will present, under oath, any further questions concerning this protest. I agree to abide by the Commission's decision on this matter. Signed, Fred Atkins.
Do you know what the beautiful part of that is?
No.
Is that was obviously a revolutionary finish that they had never seen before and required detailed explanation. And it sounds plausible because it wasn't just like, oh, we're going to do the deal where the referee gets bumped and he's knocked out for 3 minutes while we do all this other gaga. It's, oh shit, I'm sidestepping the drop kick. Boom, he caught the referee. Oh shit, got to help the referee up. Boom, get hit in the back of the head. And the world title hangs in the balance. And did the right guy win? Probably not. But God damn it, the commissioner couldn't do anything because he couldn't see what happened because the fans were jumping up and down. So I want a rematch. That was a hot angle because the people had not seen it. It wasn't prostituted and done to death and made to appear ridiculous and happening over and over and nobody thinking the little details. And that's how you built rematches and demand for rematches or, kept programs moving where they were running the town every fucking week. So, again, all of these things that we take for granted now are so corny and so overdone and so unbelievable have grown out of shit that was done that really worked, that was believable and plausible and drew money, but it was creative then. It wasn't something that everybody had seen 500 fucking times. And it wasn't extrapolated to be done so ridiculously because that's just wrestling and that's the way we do it. You had to make it look legitimate. All these things have basis in fact and originally could have the double referee finish, whatever, could actually happen the way that it was first done. But then as years go by and more people steal the ideas, they forget about closing up the little loopholes and making the logic make sense and just want to do a finish by the numbers rather than making it fit exactly that scenario that you're in the middle of, and that's why it worked to begin with.